True scary lost pet turns wrong story. The night the woods answered back. Look, let me ask you something. Have you ever had that feeling? That strange, crawling feeling? The one that hits when you realize something that should be there isn't? Like when you get home and you don't hear the tiny footsteps rushing toward you. Or when you look out at the yard and notice the gate is cracked open. Or when you call for your pet and nothing. Silence. Here's the thing. Silence should never be the first response. Never. And it's exactly inside that kind of silence that fear hides. My name is Nick, and I spend way too much time thinking about true scary lost pet gone wrong stories, cases of people who followed the trail of their missing animals and found something else instead. If you're someone who's felt that weird nervousness when your pet doesn't come back right away, if you've ever stared into your dark backyard and thought, I really shouldn't be doing this at night, or if you're just the type of person who carries a feeling you can't explain, go ahead and subscribe and leave a like if this video helps you notice what most people ignore. Because today, the story I'm about to tell you is real, and it doesn't just involve a missing pet. It's about what shows up when you start calling for something innocent in the darkness, and something else answers first. This all began in Pine Hollow, one of those tiny American towns buried between miles and miles of forest. You know the kind, where everyone knows everyone, where neighbors still wave at each other, and where the biggest tragedy of the month is someone hitting a deer on the road. Yeah, that kind of place. And it's exactly in towns like that where real terror hides. Because when something strange happens somewhere that nothing ever happens, you realize that no matter how safe you think you are, you're never really prepared. This story is about Emily Carter, a 28-year-old teacher, quiet, kind, the sort of person everyone describes as the sweetest soul in the world. She lived alone in a small house near the edge of the forest with her dog, Rufus, an energetic, intelligent border collie who was always right by her side. And then, on a Friday night around 9:17 p.m., Rufus disappeared. Now you might be thinking, Nick, dogs wander off. It happens. Yeah, it happens. But not like this. Because Rufus never left the yard. He never ran far. And most importantly, he never stayed silent when she called. And here's what most people don't realize. When an animal disappears suddenly, no noise, no dragging, no breaking, no scuffle, it's not normal animal behavior. It's the behavior of a predator. Or something that moves like a predator but doesn't act like any known one. But Emily didn't think about that. No one does. She opened the back door, called Rufus 3, maybe 4 times, and felt a cold little shiver on the back of her neck, the kind of feeling you try to ignore, but that gets heavier with every passing second of silence. When Rufus didn't return, Emily grabbed her flashlight, threw on a coat, and stepped outside. And that's when she made her first big mistake. She went out alone. I know you'd probably do the same thing. I would too. Who leaves their pet out there at night, in the cold, with forest noises you can't identify? But here's what nobody realizes when they act on instinct. The moment you walk outside at night calling the name of something vulnerable, you announce your own vulnerability. You're saying out loud, I'm worried. I'm alone. I'm searching. I'm distracted. And there are things, animals, people, and other presences that don't fit into either category that pay attention to that. Emily's backyard ended at a wooden fence with a small gate that opened directly onto a narrow forest trail. The trail was used by older locals, most of whom were now too old to walk it, and by teenagers who liked exploring the woods. When Emily shined her flashlight on the gate, it was open. And not just open. It was slightly bent, like it had been pushed from the inside outward. But the wind was still. No large paw prints. No scratch marks. No sign of a struggle. Just silence. And a strange smell in the air, like overturned soil mixed with rust. Emily stepped through the gate and onto the trail, and the moment the branches closed over her, she realized two things. It was much darker than it should have been, and much quieter than a forest should ever be. No crickets, no birds, no rustling leaves. And look, if you've ever stepped into a forest at night, you know, it never goes silent. Ever. So when it does, you need to worry. And that's when Emily heard it. A bark. But it was too perfect. No echo. No hesitation. No irregularity. It sounded like someone pressed play on a recording of Rufus. And it was coming from much deeper in the trail than Rufus could have gone. She took a few steps. The bark echoed again. Same tone. Same rhythm. As if it were being repeated. Samuel Harris, one of her neighbors who later helped the investigation, described the sound this way. It sounded like Rufus, but it didn't sound like a dog trying to be found. It sounded like someone trying to lure Emily. And honestly, that sentence has stuck with me ever since. Now let me explain something almost nobody knows. There's a psychological phenomenon called hyperfocus tracking. It happens when you're searching desperately for something, a child, a pet, something precious. When it kicks in, your brain ignores danger, ignores inconsistencies, ignores strange sounds, ignores logic. All to focus on the object of your search. You literally go blind to everything that matters. And that's why so many people get lost in forests while looking for someone else. Emily thought she was following Rufus, but everything suggested something else was leading her. After about 15 minutes, the trail narrowed and twisted around roots. Emily began hearing something behind her, light, quick steps like something circling her. She'd swing the flashlight back. Nothing. And here's where it gets really interesting. Have you noticed there are sounds that only show up when you try to ignore them? Exactly. That's when the bark changed. It went from Rufus' normal bark to something louder, more anxious, almost desperate. And here's the creepy detail, still with no echo. As if it wasn't coming from any direction. As if it was being projected. Or mimicked. Emily shouted, "Rufus, stay there. I'm coming." She ran. The bark moved farther. She ran faster. The bark got louder. Then suddenly silence. Total. Dry. Absolute. Her flashlight started flickering. She smacked the side it came back on. But now the trail wasn't in front of her anymore. The clearing was a perfectly round clearing, unnaturally round, as if something had cleared the space intentionally. And at the center was a body. Rufus. Emily sprinted toward him. Her hands shook so badly she almost dropped the flashlight. Rufus was breathing but barely. In shock. Frozen. Eyes locked on something behind her. And that's when she made her second fatal mistake. She turned around. And nothing was there. But above, in the treetops, a sound, a shift of weight. Branches bending but not breaking, under something huge. Emily slowly lifted the flashlight upward, and when the beam reached the top of the tree she saw us, too high to belong to any animal, reflecting the light, staring, unblinking, and then it barked again. But this time it wasn't perfect. It was playing with the sound, testing it, adjusting it, like a child learning a new word. Emily froze. Rufus whimpered. The thing leaned forward, and for a split second, the light revealed its skin. Too pale. Too elongated. Arms long like a primate's but far too thin to support a body. And the mouth? No lips. Just teeth. A lot of them. Then she heard it, not the bark, not a whine, but a grotesque imitation of a human voice. E-mile-Y. As if it had learned her name from hearing her call for Rufus in the woods. Emily lifted Rufus into her arms and ran. Branches snapped behind her, but not like something jumping down. Different. Rhythmic. like it was following her from above, running parallel to her through the trees. Then the barking returned, but now from every direction, like the forest itself was barking. And here's the detail that haunts me. Some of the barks were delayed, like an echo that couldn't sync properly, as if the thing was trying to replicate the sound multiple times from multiple places, but couldn't coordinate them. Emily didn't look back. She just ran, Rufus limp in her arms. When she finally saw her backyard gate, the thing called out again, Emily, but this time, close. Too close. She slammed the gate, sprinted inside, and locked everything. What happened next only made things worse, because the thing did not leave. At 10:43 p.m., Emily called the police. The call is archived, and the recording is terrifying. She says, "There's someone in my yard. It's not human, saying my name, and it's making my dogs sound." And at that moment, from outside, the thing tapped on the back door. Not hard, not violently, just testing. The police arrived 12 minutes later, and guess what they found? Nothing. No human footprints, no animal prints, no marks on the door. But they found three things. The gate was open again. There were scratch marks on the fence, far too high for any local animal. And most disturbing, there were impressions in the dirt. Not footprints, handprints, as if something had walked on all fours using its arms. The impressions led from the fence to a tree, and from the tree, nothing, as if it had climbed up and vanished. Rufus survived, but he never barked again, never went outside at night again, and he spent hours staring out the window as if he knew something was still out there. Emily moved 2 months later, never returned. The house stayed empty for years, until a new resident, unaware of everything, installed cameras to watch his own dog. And you can already guess where this is going. In the first week at 2:16 a.m., the camera caught something climbing the tree at the back of the yard. Not fast, not slow, but in a way too human to be an animal, and not human enough to be a person. Before the camera glitched, before the footage went black, the thing turned to the lens and opened its mouth, and the audio caught one phrase, "Emile, what?" But Emily didn't live there anymore, which means one thing. It wasn't calling Emily. It was calling whoever was alone in that house now. Now, you might be thinking, "Nick, this is too supernatural. This doesn't happen." Here's what most people don't realize. The forest learns. It always has. It listens. It imitates. It repeats. And there are things living out there that aren't animals, aren't spirits, aren't people. They're presences. And some of those presences don't hunt out of hunger. They hunt out of curiosity. And when you walk into the darkness calling for something vulnerable, a dog, a cat, even a person, you're opening an invitation you don't understand. Because you're not just calling. You're being heard. If you've ever experienced something like this, or if you've ever felt that cold intuition while searching for your pet at night, leave a comment below. I read every single one. And if you want more true stories that mix terror, deep psychology, and that spiritual edge people pretend doesn't exist, leave a like and subscribe. Because in the next video, I'll tell you what happens when someone follows not the sound of an animal, but the sound of their own voice being imitated in the woods. And look, it did not end well. Until the next video.